began to identify what I'll refer to roughly as pain points, identifying the pain points in the system, how we make decisions within the multi-stakeholder model, how long things are taking, what the dynamics within the decision-making processes are. And so in Barcelona, the community began the process of identifying the issues that may be hampering the effectiveness of the multi-stakeholder model. What we did in Kobe, and Marita, you were there, and I recall we had a great conversation in Kobe, was we had a facilitated conversation, and that's my role, is to facilitate this conversation with the community, where we took the issues that were identified in Barcelona, put them up on the screen, and began to build on them, began to flesh them out. Members of the community began to speak to those issues and offer more specific examples or a more clear articulation of the nature of the challenge, the problem that's hampering the multi-stakeholder model as it works today. So where we are is in the first step of a two-step process. The first step of this process is to really clearly identify those issues that are hampering the effective working of the multi-stakeholder model. That work will continue to Marrakesh. Shortly, you'll see there will be a public comment period launched on the issues list, taking the good inputs from Kobe and offering public comment and inviting the community still to fully articulate clearly the issues that are hampering the model, to prioritize the ones that the community thinks are hampering or preventing it from being more effective. And through that public comment process, I anticipate that at the end of it, we're going to have a very full and clear list of issues that the community thinks are the issues that need to be addressed. So that's step one. Once we have that issue list in place, we will then turn toward creating a work plan. That's step two. So where this all goes is that we're going to develop a work plan where the issues that are hampering the multi-stakeholder model will be mapped into a work plan, and groups within ICANN, whether it's a particular AC, SO, the board, ICANN org, will be tasked with taking on that issue and developing an approach, a solution, within the 5-year frame, as you say, 2021 to 2025 of the strategic plan. That work plan will develop between Marrakesh and Montreal. And when that work plan is completed, it's going to become part of the operational plan. The operational plan will then have costing. So at the end of this process, you're going to have issues that the community believes hampers the system right now, and that if we address them can make it more effective. We'll have a work plan that identifies which group is going to take on the development of a solution, an approach, a methodology that can make the model work more effectively. And within that, that group is going to identify the resources they're going to need to develop that approach, and by which date they'll deliver that solution. So these are all the working pieces. There's a step one, which is identify the issues, a step two, develop the work plan, and then that becomes part of the operational plan with costing in it going forward. So I'll pause there because I know I've just thrown a lot at you, and hopefully it's clear enough, but please ask any clarifying questions you have.
No, actually, that was very clear, and it just gives me pause, I guess, to think there's a whole lot of work ahead. The hard part's coming up, right? in kind of once you got this package of issues together, then people have to sit down and figure out how to address them. That's how I guess I would put it. And then how much it's going to cost to address them, if I'm not paraphrasing too much.
No, that's right. That's essentially the process. And I think we're at a good place right now, in my view. The conversation in Kobe, I felt the community members were very engaged. The energy in the room was good. I think I can observe that in speaking with members of the community across the week of COVID and in the session, there seems to be agreement on what the nature of the issues are that are hampering effective working. That's a good thing. Everyone is feeling the pain across the board, if you will, and that's a good place to begin.
Yeah, I agree with you. I had the same feeling. People were phrasing things differently, but the same issues were coming up over and over again. Many of them have to do with time and burnout, and just giving people a chance to keep up with a very heavy agenda at the best of times. Yeah, it's going to be it's a short timeline as well to have that part of the puzzle done between Marrakesh and Montreal, which is just really only a few months. July, August, September, and yeah, 3 months. How do you see it actually? What is will there be a lot of meetings within those 3 months, or are you how do you see this happening? Actually, there's going to be something at Marrakesh, and then we're at Montreal. So in between, are you going to be talking to the communities? Are they're expecting to be setting up their own sessions? How will that work?
So thank you for that. So very shortly on the ICANN site, which is dedicated to this process, we'll be announcing the launching of the public comment process. So there will be the issues list, the current version, which will take the inputs from Kobe and put them on the issues, right? So you'll see all the inputs from Kobe. So if the issue is consensus, you're going to see the comments that were related to consensus put in Kobe, and that's the starting point. So there'll be a public comment process. Secondly, I intend to host 2 webinars between now and Marrakesh, which will be the conversation, continuing the conversation, getting clarity and specificity around the issues list. And in the webinar just prior to Marrakesh, which will be about the second week of June, we'll look at the outline of the work plan and begin to focus on that, because that will be the next step. So there'll be the 2 webinars. There'll be a communications site at the ICANN site. I do intend to continue to have, one-to-ones with the AC and SO chairs to make sure that each group is up to date, understands the status and the opportunities to contribute to the process. And then when we pivot to the work plan, between Marrakesh and Montreal, again, I'll have scheduled webinars to move that work forward, communications between the ACs and SO chairs. And I said Montreal is not really the finish line. The finish line is December to have that work plan finalized so that it can go to staff, become part of the operational plan, and costed. We will have a work session in Marrakesh. We will have a work, just as we did in Kobe, and we'll have a work session in Montreal as well. So that's the rough outline of the work sessions and the webinars.
I think that's great. I'm happy to hear that it's actually December and not October. Yeah, and I think that you're going to have a lot. You're going to have a lot of people on these webinars. It's a high interest topic, and I'm thinking within our own community, we need to probably circulate this information more, make sure people are aware of what's going to happen next and how it's going to happen, where the information is that you're posting right now on the opening up a space on the website. And as you say, you are communicating with our chair, Maureen, all the time. She's very good at getting stuff back to us. She really wants to see that we are fully participating in this process as well. So I think it's a very, very important thing. I've seen strategic plans before. I know that they have a huge impact on the organization going forward. And this is why these things are done. It's a time to reevaluate what's happening and make adjustments. Not huge changes, but adjustments to the way things are being done so that they're more effective. And I think this is where ICANN is going, trying to go with this strat plan. And it's going to be exciting. I'm wishing you all the very best in your work there. It's a pretty big job, and I remind anybody else who's listening, it's only 1 out of 4 of the recommendations in the strategic plan, or is there 5? There are a number of others, but not necessarily quite as controversial, and maybe not going to be getting quite the inclusive treatment that this one is, because the nature of the multi-stakeholder governance model is still evolving in many ways, and we're still trying to figure out how to make it best work. So this is a key cross point where we can see what's been going on, what needs to happen in the future in order to improve things, and that's pretty exciting. So I'm glad to have you on board, and I'm happy to be on board myself. Are there other things that maybe you can tell us about how we can best participate, or anything we can do to help keep the thing moving forward as far as the ALAC and the end user community is concerned?
I'll just offer this. This really is coming from the community. My role here is to be independent, neutral facilitator of the conversation. It's not for me to develop solutions. It's not for me to lead the conversation to where it's going. I'm encouraged by the energy I hear from the community. I'm encouraged by the shared view of what's not working. And I know that will be reflected in the issues list when you see it for public comment. The only thing I can say is to be engaged on this. And I say that also with a full appreciation for how much work the community is trying to manage at the moment. And one of the reasons in thinking about how this process could be structured, I've proposed the work session, the one in each ICANN meeting, the public comment period, and the webinars, is because this is important work. The inputs need to be fulsome. The community needs to agree, but I also don't want to create another very heavy work stream or work process, because the community is stretched. Everyone is saying, look, we've got too much on our plates. So I genuinely believe, Marita, personally, that we can get this important work done through a conversation, not through a heavy bureaucratic process. And I've structured the process that way because I think that's where we can capture the inputs together and get the work product delivered. That's what I'd offer.
Well, that's really encouraging. Thank you very much for that, and thanks for the great work you've been doing on this so far, and thanks for being part of this session. I think that it will be helpful for other people in the ALAC community to be able to go back to this and really, if they get confused at all or wonder what this is about, can sort of get a grounding again about where we're going with this. Thank you very much.
Hope that helps. Thank you both.
Over to you, Glenn. Glenn, you're muted.
I see that, Marita. Thank you I noticed the same time you did. Okay, so, there's people out there that will say that ICANN lives in a bit of a bubble, and that the Pollyanna approach that some people take in terms of what is multi-stakeholderism, how are we going to deal with the prevailing attitude that can happen in certain quarters, that we see that people are more than happy to attack the concept of pluralism and multi-stakeholderism. So, I know you're not going to dictate the opinions of the community, but we have a certain attitude that it's quite a negative attitude on the optimism that actually most people share. So how do you deal with that diversity of opinion?
Well, first, as you point out, Glenn, my view is irrelevant here. I'm a neutral, independent facilitator of a conversation in the community. In the issues list, you will see issues as we saw in Kobe, inclusivity, culture, representativeness. The issues that you're touching on are on the issues list. And underneath those, you will see reflected inputs from community members. And those inputs can diverge. I think when you see in the public comment the issues list as it is today after the Barcelona inputs and the Kobe inputs, there's much more commonality on the issues than you might imagine.
Okay.
But it's really through those inputs and through the inputs to the public comment process on these specific issues where we will see what the nature of the challenge is, and from that have the ability in a constructive way to put it into a work plan and develop improvements.
Okay.
I think as a baseline, nobody's suggesting the multi-stakeholder model is not working. And most people in the community are seeing where there are pain points that are preventing it from being more effective. But it's within the confines of those issues and the public comment to those issues where we're going to get the answers to your questions.
Great. Just a bit of history. Larry Strickland was involved with something quite similar over a year ago, and he reached out to the community to get community feedback on multi-stakeholderism with regards to the course that he actually developed. And he retired just back in December, but it was something that, from our point of view, running the North American School of Internet Governance, and I'm sure with all the other schools that are around the world, multi-stakeholderism is a core belief within all our schools. And so I'm just wondering if that's something that you might be interested in sort of reaching out to, is some of those schools that actually would be very interested in hearing the message that you're doing.
I'm open to that, and I'll also say that, you know, I'm engaged to facilitate a very specific conversation here within ICANN, and that's the work that I'm going to do. To the extent that it's relevant outside of the ICANN community, that's important, and that's also not the immediate focus of my work, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Back to you, Marita.
I think multi-stakeholderism within our own community, we believe in it. That's why we're there, and we want to see it better. We want to see it get better. We know there are problems, and so I agree that there's an optimism there. There will be a few people who are not, but the majority of people really are. So I think it's going to move forward and get better. As far as interest in this sort of thing outside of our own bubble, there ought to be a lot of interest. I guess we're having our own growing pains, and so it's a little hard to spend a lot of time speaking to a lot of other people while we're in the middle of this, which I think is a really critical point. If we can get beyond this critical point at ICANN, where we can work out how we can be more efficient and effective through the work that Brian's doing and the community conversations, then maybe it'll be easier for us, and we can be more effective in talking about it outside of our own community, IGF, other places as well, and certainly the schools that you and other people have been working on. Yeah. And I don't have any more questions. Glenn, do you have more questions?
No, I think what Brian said in the chat, he's going to provide the links to, and so I'm doing some notes of this as well for the blog. And so the soon as we know when public comments will happen and when the webinars are going to happen, we'll do our best to promote and encourage people in the NARALO community and beyond after watching this video to get involved with the process.
Right, we're totally out. We're totally out to make sure as many people get involved as possible. Yes.
Thank you for that. Now I will be pushing this information out on our activities shortly to you and to everyone across the community. So I'm very hopeful for high community engagement throughout this process, as you suggested, Marita.
All right. Well, I think that's about it for us today. I want to wish everybody my day is half over because I'm in Europe. The rest of you, it's early morning. So wish you all a good day for the rest of the day. And thanks for being part of this.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thanks again.
Bye.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Brian. Bye.
Okay. All the best.
Bye-bye. Cheers.
Bye.